Do you know what? One club who are definitely not enjoying life right now are Manchester United. 3 defeats on the bounce. Arsenal, Brighton, in fact, as well, and then Bayern Munich in midweek. And Craig, I'd like to come to you on this one. Turmoil at Old Trafford, it says on the back page of The Sun, and disgusted. This is another story that's come back. Apparently, United stars still fuming over how the club treated keeper David De Gea. I mean, it really is a case of when it rains, it pours right now for Manchester United, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I quite like the picture on the back of the paper there of the goalkeeper dropping his keys as he gets into his car, which was a gift for any tabloid, I must admit. But yeah, now I was on this show, I think it was in March or April time, and I made the statement, and I was pretty blunt about it. I said, I don't think Manchester United are very good. Now, I wasn't speaking from particularly strong ground because they just won the Carabao Cup and they're on the way to finishing in the top 4 in the Premier League. They finished third, of course, didn't they? But I've had this suspicion about the manager and about the team for a long time now. I was down at Brentford on the second weekend of the season a year ago when they got beaten 4-0. I think they conceded the 4 goals in the first half, didn't they? And ever since then, I've always just thought they're getting by. You know, that this where we're at now was always just around the corner. The recruitment is... You look at the team sheet from last night and from going forward this season, they've spent a lot of money to stand still or possibly even regress. Now, I was at the semi-final 2019 Spurs v Ajax when Erik ten Hag was manager, and you looked at that Ajax team and it was one of the most exciting in Europe. Every single player had resale value, with a tremendous to watch. Ten Hag comes into Manchester United and you're thinking, with a lot more resource, a bigger club, are you going to build the same, one of the most exciting young teams in Europe? Look at what they've got now. I like Eriksen and Casemiro as players, but does that really represent an exciting, buoyant, energetic future? Then you look at the guys at the back who are still playing: Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Shaw when he's fit, Diogo Dalot. Marcus Rashford hasn't really kicked on under the new manager. So no, I think they really are the next club up on that crisis carousel which goes around with the national press, and it's a huge one for them this weekend against Burnley.
Well, it's interesting you use that game crisis, Craig, because on the back page of the Metro, one game from crisis is the headline. I mean, it's not quite what Vincent Kompany said, but Vincent Kompany, obviously Burnley boss at the moment, and they face Manchester United this weekend, saying, in a top club, you're always one loss away from a crisis. Doesn't have to be United, it's the same in every top club. One thing this man, Erik ten Hag, has demonstrated is he is extremely capable. So, they're picking the headline a little bit from, a combination of what he said, not actually what he said. Do you think United are one loss from a crisis, though, Jonathan?
I think Kompany's right about the fact that, whether it is United or Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, the downside, the kind of the cataclysm that comes from losing a game, especially against opposition that you're supposed to beat, which is, I guess, most weeks, is kind of debilitating. Like if you have a big club losing games, they're all thought of the process or the long-term strategy or any kind of transition period that the club happens to be going through. It all kind of goes out of the window, and I think that has been to the detriment of Manchester United for 2, 5, 10 years. This idea that you have to kind of react to whatever short-term crisis, if you want to call it, or short-term need or malady is afflicting the club at that point. I honestly think like if we separate out everything that's happened kind of off the field, which I think has shown the sort of the central dysfunction at the club, on the pitch, for the last sort of 14, 15 months that Erik ten Hag has been there has been progress. And I think if they stick to that progress, if they back the manager, and if they kind of give that whole process time to breathe, and yes, time to fail occasionally, time to have setbacks, and and occasionally not come off, that is going to have positive implication for them in the long run, because rebuilding a football club of the size of Manchester United from the place they were in, for much of the last decade is not a it's not a 1 week solution. It's not it's not even a 1 year solution. Ten Hag has had just over a year, and he is slowly rebuilding that club. And yeah, if you want to take a view in 6-12 months time that it's not going in the right direction, fine. But I think 5 games into the season, I think you need to take a little bit of a long term perspective there.
Craig, what do you think about the supposed pressure on Erik ten Hag. I mean, he seems like relatively the same demeanour every time he speaks, whether he's lost 3 games in a row or whether he's won 3 games in a row. He doesn't really give much away. And, of course, he has been back to the transfer market. Onana, as you mentioned, where he's come in. Mason Mount, Højlund's come in. You know, do you think that he will be under pressure or do you think actually they will just carry on backing him no matter what this season? Because, as Jonathan says, he's one of the only consistent things there is at Manchester United right now.
Yeah, like I said, I disagreed with what John said. I think I made my opinion quite clear in the previous answer that I've always had a suspicion that Ten Hag wouldn't really be the man to take Manchester United on. It was interesting that, David, you touched upon his his actual demeanour. I don't think he's got the charisma really to be Manchester United manager. I wouldn't even argue that there has been progress. Yes, there's been the top 4, and I think, you know, overall in terms of results last season, he deserved credit. But you've always got to look beyond the results. And I go back to the point I made in terms of I thought this was coming for a long time. I was never ever convinced by the way in which they played. And will he be under pressure? Well, I thought what was telling last week was that for the first time when he made the substitution, Martial for Højlund, there was really vociferous boos inside Old Trafford. And once those supporters turn, and I'm not saying they have yet, but once they do and once they make their mind up on something, they can be fairly persuasive and have an impact and an influence on decisions which are made at board level. So not yet, no. And does he deserve more time than 5 games? Well, yes, of course he does. You know, the results and where he took them last season and the isolation of that, it deserves some time and affords him time. But we saw them last night against Bayern Munich in the least thrilling 7-goal thriller I've ever watched. It was a game that had no jeopardy, really. You were watching it, you knew Bayern Munich were going to win. It didn't matter what Manchester United did. Even if they got it back to 3-3, I still think Bayern would have went and scored. That was the sort of the attitude I had watching the game. And there was an inevitability about that defeat that you shouldn't feel about a Manchester United team. And for me, you call it, you have these instincts and these feelings, these vibes as a journalist. I've never felt it was the right fit there. And I think we're starting to see now the beginning of it unravelling. But he will be given time for it to unravel, and so he should be.
Well, we will find out.